Hi everyone, my name is Andy Wheelock. I am the OETC conference interviewer, and with me today is one of the special presenters, and that is Hadi Partovi. And Hadi is from Code.org, and I'll give you just a brief introduction. He is an entrepreneur, investor, and co-founder of Code.org, which is, if you're not familiar, I'm sure most ed tech folks are, is an education nonprofit dedicated to growing computer science education. Graduated from Harvard University, began your career during the browser wars, I love that term, in the 1990s, and you were Microsoft's group program manager for Internet Explorer. And I guess with that, I think we'll just mention that your presentation is going to be on Wednesday, February 10th for the OETC conference, and you're going to be kind of 2:30 to 3:30 slot. So, and I believe your title of your presentation is America's Untapped Opportunity, which sounds like a thought-provoking presentation. So with that, first of all, thank you for joining me from Seattle. And tell me about the genesis of Code.org, because I know for me as a tech integrator, it's really caught on, and we've got a lot of schools that are participating in trying to get coding going. Can you tell us just about Code.org?
Sure. You know, starting Code.org didn't come up as a plan to sort of build this big organization or this grassroots movement. You know, I've been interested in trying to get more students to try computer programming and getting more schools to teach it. But I was kind of tepid in my approach initially, and to start, the only thing I focused on was making just a short video, a 5-minute, YouTube video to promote computer science. And when I started Code.org, that literally was the only goal I had in mind. It was a hobby project that I would do over 6 months. And I've had a good enough career in tech that I recruited some of my best contacts in tech to be in this short video, like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. And the result of that video, as that video was coming together, I realized, well, I need a website to put this video on. I can't just put it on my personal Facebook page or YouTube page. And that's why, the name Code.org was picked just to be a little frame around the video and nothing else. And in fact, when that video launched, the website for Code.org basically had 3 things. It had the video, it had a petition for people to sign, and then if you were an educator or teacher, a form to fill out more information. And to say, if you're really interested in having this at your school, tell us where your school is, and we'll try to hook you up with somebody who can help you. And then when we put out the video, it had 10 million views in 1 week. 1 million people signed the petition, and most importantly, 20,000 educators filled out that information saying, we want to learn how to get this at our school. So really, the inspiration to start what is now today's Code.org was the 20,000 educators who said, we want this at our school. And realizing there's not a single organization or even a group of organizations with the capacity to service 20,000 educators. There's nothing that you could give 20,000 people, and that was the sort of the seed of creating today's Code.org.
If you were to give, say, your mission statement for Code.org as it stands today, what would it be?
It's it's actually the exact same petition we had since that video launched. It's a 1 sentence: that every student in every school deserves the opportunity to learn computer science.
My father used to say, every kid, was one of his old axioms, everyone should learn Latin, Of course, he had to suffer through Latin when he was a kid, and would always complain that they don't teach Latin anymore in the schools. But his argument was a good one, and it was basically that Latin was kind of the root of so many languages, and if you know Latin, you can kind of weave your way through a lot of different languages. And of course, he went on into the sciences as a doctor, and so that helped him immensely there. But is coding kind of that same philosophy? I mean, should we expose kids to coding in that same sense, and for those same reasons, to give them opportunities, or at least have a basic understanding of computer science?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I had never studied Latin, but I believe that everybody should learn a foreign language. I learned French when I was in school, and then I later on learned Spanish, and it certainly helps you learning one language to then start weaving your way into other languages. I actually deal many times with the misconception because of the name of Code.org. Our message actually isn't that every kid should learn to code. It's that every school should teach computer science. And computer science is a little bit broader than Latin. I'm sorry, than just coding. And the way I compare it is learning to code is like learning grammar. But when you take an English literature course, you're not just learning grammar, you're learning English literature. And similarly, computer science is broader than learning the coding constructs of where do the semicolons go, or did I close the angle brackets correctly. Learning computer science is about learning how does the internet work, how does encryption protect data, how is text compressed when it's sent over the internet, what's a cookie, all of these things, in addition to how do computer programs and apps and algorithms work. Learning all of those things is just as foundational as today we learn in school, what's hemoglobin, what's chlorophyll, how does photosynthesis work, what's a battery, how does a light bulb work. All of those are things every child learns in school because they're part of understanding how the world around them works. And in the 21st century, the technological change that's happening around our world makes the sort of computer science fundamentals things that every child should have the similar exposure to.
And I like the way you frame that, because it's not just about coding. And I think, again, maybe we need to refocus and not just think of it as one piece, but more of a broader picture. Can you give me the theme of your presentation for OETC?
Sure. My presentation is going to have one part which I do pretty regularly, which is talking about the importance of science, which, not that this is when I started talking about this was sort of not a new idea, but somewhat contentious, or at least not something a lot of people thought about. Increasingly, the idea of teaching computer science in America's schools has become extremely popular, and it doesn't need a lot of discussion. But still, just these little differences like coding versus computer science, or is it vocational or is it foundational? That's a big part of my talk. And then I go into some of the specifics of how you, as a teacher, could bring this to your school or school district. Because increasingly, we're in a world where people know that this is important, but they don't know how to act or what to do about it. Or if they've done something about it, they've introduced 1 hour of code, which is great and fun, but it's not enough. For us, the hour of code is really a marketing vehicle to give people the first taste and the first experience, but then they want to do more. And understanding what they could do as a teacher or as an administrator is basically a core part of my talk.
Have you, G, this is kind of a side question off of that, have you worked with schools or students, and have you seen kind of the magic light go off for some kids? Because I imagine this taps into some kids' talents that may not have been exposed in school and other areas.
Absolutely. We hear stories about this multiple times every day, with millions of students working on our stuff. And I've either received personal notes or just seen it in front of my eyes. My favorite personal note was a mother who wrote about her daughter, saying that, my daughter's dyslexic and she's the farthest behind in all of her subjects, and she came home crying because she heard that we're going to do an hour of code in the classroom, and she came home saying, this is going to be one more thing I'm going to be the worst at. And then during their actual hour of code, she said she actually was the fastest in the class to finish, and the teacher had her go help other students, and now she's trying the rest of your curriculum and she's ahead of the rest of the class on that. And not only it's given her the confidence that she can do something well, it's actually helped her have a completely different outlook and positivity about school and her other fields and so on. That was such a touching story to hear. And it's, it goes to show that kids, if they get passionate about something, they can really shine. And lots of kids have gotten passionate about the computer programming exercises we've built for them.
Do you think, I saw your TED Talk, which I would highly recommend. It was a really solid, I think, foundation when I was kind of looking forward to interviewing you. And one of the things that you mentioned is that, there's a lot of jobs out there for people who know how to code, but it's not just in technology, it's in all avenues of industry. Do you think that's true, and do you think is that going to be a trend that continues?
Yeah, for sure. Jobs as software engineers are in every industry. In fact, the tech companies that you think of, like Google or Facebook or Microsoft, they add up for only 1/3 of the jobs for software engineers. A company like Goldman Sachs hires more software engineers than LinkedIn or Facebook, and that blows people's minds. But banking, auto manufacturing, the government, utilities, entertainment companies, communication companies, all of these people need to figure out how technology is changing their worlds. In Detroit right now, among the automakers, the hardest to find positions to hire for are computer scientists. So no matter what field you want to go into, this is hotly under demand. But I personally am doing what I'm doing not just for the 5% of us that become, computer engineers and go into those specific jobs. It's for the people who want to become lawyers or doctors or, just general business people. No matter what your future career is that you're interested in getting into, understanding how the world is changing and understanding the fabric of technology that's causing that disruption is important for every career.
I know you've probably gotten a lot of perspective from both your job. I remember in the TED Talk you mentioned you grew up in Iran, had a Commodore 64. We share that. But from maybe that perch of living in another country, obviously living in a country with a very different organizational structure, and maybe let's bring that into today, and let's just talk education because we're thinking of an ed tech conference. But are there some organizational or structural changes you would like to see in American education or maybe worldwide education?
Gosh, education just in this country is so complicated, let alone worldwide, that it'd be hard to surmise and talk about structural changes that would make things better. And I have the humility to know what I don't know. And I think anybody who wants to restructure things can easily point out what's broken today, but not foresee what break they cause in whatever thing they design in the future. And I don't consider myself anywhere near an expert enough to try to think about reorganizing education. But what I can definitely say, or at least the structure of how things are done, certainly for the work we do, it makes our jobs harder that U.S. education is driven at such a local level. So, there's multiple countries now that have done top-down national mandates saying every school must teach computer science. And if we had that kind of a top-down mandate in this country, you could think that my job would be easier. But then if you look at what happens in those countries, those top-down mandates are passed, but is it actually translating to work in the classroom? It's not clear. And in fact, the decentralized nature of America's education system has forced Code.org to build a grassroots movement among teachers saying we want this rather than the top-down approach. And I actually think the grassroots momentum we've built is much, much stronger than any top-down mandates. And a huge part of the success of Code.org is the now hundreds of thousands of teachers who believe in our mission and want to make it happen. And that's now leading to what we'll be seeing just in the next few days, even of top-down efforts to sort of catch up with that interest level.
Well, I think that's a powerful point, and I know from working with teachers and as a teacher myself, if you can have that ownership and buy-in, or at least feel you have that, I shouldn't even feel it should be part of it, I think you can take it a lot further. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's a good perspective.
Yeah, we don't think we own it. We think we are lucky to have received it, and it's every day, people ask us what's the best thing about Code.org. By far the best thing about what we've done so far is the support we have from educators, and we strive every day to continue deserving and earning that support.
Great. All right. Well, I heard that we were talking about the Commodore 64, and I always laugh. I still have my Commodore 64, but I saw an article the other day that they're going to make them again. Would you buy one if they?
I would totally buy one. I don't have the original one I had. It's somewhere in Iran in a trash bin somewhere.
Well, I still have mine in my closet. It doesn't work, so and I don't know if I could hook it up to anything. I don't think any of the outputs would fit anything, but it was a fun computer.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, if you have a second, I'm going to ask you three quick, what I call the speed geek questions, if you don't mind. I'm going to just bounce out here to my other screen. I hope that's not... There we go. So I'm just going to spin the dial. Can you see the speed geek questions?
Sure.
Okay. So you get three of them, and they're meant to be short, lively, and hopefully some fun. So here we go. Here's number one. Your favorite tablet?
My favorite tablet is definitely the iPad.
Okay, so Any favorite apps off of that?
Actually, the iPad Mini would be my favorite tablet. The actual full iPad is a little too heavy to hold, but the Mini is, it's the one that I use.
All right, thank you. And our next one is your first computer. I think I know the answer to that one.
It's a Commodore 64.
Did you learn BASIC? Is that?
I learned BASIC, and then I also learned a little bit of machine language, but mostly BASIC.
Okay, me too. All right. Star Wars or Star Trek?
This one for me is extremely easy. I think there's some people who have trouble choosing, but I didn't watch any Star Trek growing up. Definitely Star Wars. And I should say it was one of the highlights of doing what we do at Codeorg was the chance to be part of the new movie release, and building an hour of code tutorial in the Star Wars theme has been amazing as a personal opportunity for me to actually literally work with the studio and receiving the assets before the actual movie was released.
That's awesome. All right, well, that's the end of our interview, and thank you so much. And I hope I'll definitely be there for your presentation. I hope I get a chance to meet you at the conference. I'll be there, and thank you. And you're doing great work.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Too.